My name is Anastasia Mensah. 5 years ago, I was thrown away like garbage. Sold off for $10 million by the man who once swore to love me. I left Ghana that night, broken, carrying not only the pieces of my shattered dignity, but also carrying life within me, a life he never knew existed. Back then, I had nothing. No home. No family. No future. Or so I thought. It all started one humid night in Accra. I got a desperate call from the person I trusted most, Linda Owusu, my best friend since childhood. Anastasia, help me. I'm trapped at the Paradise Lounge. Her voice was frantic. Terrified. Without thinking, I rushed to the address she sent. Room 808. I banged on the door, heart pounding, praying I wasn't too late. But when I entered, it wasn't Linda waiting for me. A pair of arms grabbed me, rough and unrelenting. The room was dark, suffocating, and before I could scream, a man's voice, low, commanding, whispered, "Relax. You'll enjoy it." I fought. I begged. But it didn't matter. I left that room broken, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And when I stumbled outside, there she was. Linda. Laughing. With Deborah Mensah, my stepsister. Their arms were linked like old friends. They had set me up. 3 days later, my world crumbled completely. "You are no longer my daughter," my father, Kofi Mensah, bellowed. "You have brought shame to our name." Deborah wept crocodile tears by his side, pretending to be the innocent one. No one listened to me. No one cared. That night, I packed a single suitcase and left the only home I had ever known. Clutching the $10 million check that Kwame Boateng, my husband, had coldly handed me. "Sign the divorce papers. Take the money. Leave. I don't ever want to see you again," he said. He didn't even ask why. Didn't wonder how the woman he married could fall so low overnight. He just wanted me gone. I boarded the first flight out of Kotoka International Airport, bound for China. Pregnant. Alone. Broke in spirit but holding on to one tiny hope. My child. Life in Beijing wasn't easy at first. I didn't know the language. I didn't know the culture. I didn't even know how I was going to survive. But desperation has a way of turning you into a fighter. I worked every job I could find, waitress, cleaner, translator. And in the midst of my struggle, I met Yongchen. A quiet, serious man, a tech entrepreneur with a kind heart and a past filled with his own scars. He didn't pity me. He respected me. And slowly, he loved me. We married 2 years later. Together, we built a life. And not just any life, a grand one. I launched a jewelry brand, Anaya Designs, blending African beauty and Chinese artistry. It exploded across Asia, then Europe, and finally back into Africa. Liang's company became one of the top 5 in Shenzhen. Together, we amassed an empire. And best of all, our 2 beautiful children, Amara and Otto. A boy and a girl. My heart. My redemption. 5 years after I was cast out like a beggar, I returned to Ghana. But not the same girl who had once begged for love. I arrived at Kotoka Airport in a private jet, stepping out in a flowing white Kent gown, diamond earrings sparkling in the sun. Liang held my hand, our children bouncing happily around us. We were met by a convoy of black SUVs. It caused a stir. News spread fast. Who is the mysterious Ghanaian woman returning with a Chinese billionaire husband? Meanwhile, Kwame Boateng was no longer the mighty CEO he once was. Shortly after I left, his new lover, Linda, defrauded him. She emptied his accounts. sold his shares, leaked his dirty secrets. His company collapsed under lawsuits and scandals. Investors fled. His friends abandoned him. And Linda? She vanished into thin air with millions. Kwame went from penthouses to rented apartments. From Ferraris to beat-up taxis. He was a ghost of the man he used to be. It happened at a charity gala in Accra. I was the guest of honor. My jewelry collection was being auctioned to support orphanages. Kwame stumbled into the event, a shadowy figure dressed in a cheap, ill-fitting suit. His eyes widened when he saw me, radiant, confident, untouchable. He pushed through the crowd, desperate. "Anastasia, please, let's talk." I turned slowly, looking him up and down. "I'm sorry, sir," I said coldly. "Do I know you?" The room went still. He dropped to his knees, in front of everyone, and sobbed. "I was wrong, please, come back. I have nothing without you." I leaned in slightly and whispered. "That's right. You have nothing. And you never deserved me." I walked away, my head high, my husband and children waiting for me with smiles. As we drove home that night, Amara climbed into my lap. "Mommy, why was that man crying?" I kissed her forehead and smiled. "Because, darling, sometimes people throw diamonds away, thinking they're stones. And by the time they realize their mistake, the diamond has already found a new crown to shine in." I turned to look out the window, watching the city lights blur into stars. My story wasn't one of revenge. It was a story of survival. Of rising. Of knowing your worth, even when the world tries to bury it. And for the first time in my life, I was truly free. Chapter 2. I thought my story ended the night I walked away from Kwame at the charity gala. I thought it was the perfect ending, rich, loved, victorious. But life always has another twist. A few months after we returned to Ghana, Leong and I decided to settle in Accra permanently. We bought a sprawling mansion in airport residential area, marble floors, gold accents, a garden so wide my children raced through it until dusk. Business was booming. Our names glittered across the society pages. But beneath the glamour, shadows were stirring. One humid afternoon, as I browsed through a boutique in East Legon, a stranger approached me. A woman. Old, hunched, but her eyes burned with a familiar malice. "You think you've escaped, little girl," she hissed. I froze. It was Madame Abina, Linda's mother, the woman who had always hated me, blaming me for stealing opportunities from her precious daughter. "You think wealth will save you? You have enemies you cannot even see," she warned before vanishing into the crowd. I laughed it off at first. But soon, strange things began happening. Anonymous letters slipped under my door. Threats scratched into my car. Rumors began swirling, scandals tying my name to criminal activities, old lies resurfacing. And then one morning, I opened the newspaper to see a headline. Anastasia Mensachin accused of fraud and money laundering. My hands shook. The accusations were false, fabricated, twisted. But in Ghana, whispers travel faster than facts. Clients began pulling their investments. The press camped outside my home. And worst of all, Leong was arrested. Who would do this to us? I cried, pacing the cold tiles of the police station. And then, I found out. It wasn't just Madame Abina. It was someone closer. Someone I had trusted. My former assistant, Yobidioko, had sold forged documents to the authorities, framing Leong and me. Bought off. By none other than Deborah Mensah. Yes. My stepsister. The same one who had once laughed at my pain. The same one who had taken everything from me years ago. She was back. And this time, she wanted everything I had built. I wanted to collapse. I wanted to scream. But then I remembered. I was not that broken girl anymore. I was Anastasia Mensichan, a woman forged by betrayal, polished by pain. And I would not be defeated. With the help of Liang's legal team, I uncovered US bank transactions, wire transfers straight from Deborah's secret accounts in Dubai. I exposed the truth. The court cleared our names. You was arrested. Deborah? She fled. Vanished. Just like Linda had all those years ago. But karma always knows the address. And then came the final blow. Kwame, the man who once threw me away, was spotted begging outside Oxford Street, drunk and shoeless. The world he had built on greed had finally devoured him. A friend sent me a photo. Kwame sitting by the gutter, holding a battered sign that read, "Will work for food." I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel pity. I felt nothing. He was just a lesson. A living, breathing reminder that destiny never forgets. Today, I stand taller than ever. Not because of the money. Not because of the titles. But because I rose. Without losing my soul. I hold my children close. I hold my husband's hand. I hold my mother's memory in my heart. And I know, true wealth isn't measured in dollars or cedis. It's measured in love, loyalty, and the quiet strength to keep going. Even when the world tells you to fall. This is not just my story. This is a story for every woman who has been thrown away, stepped on, betrayed. You are not broken. You are not worthless. You are a diamond, tested by fire. And diamonds never stop shining.
I was 3.5 when I first thought my life was about to begin. They told me Mr. Yates was coming to adopt me. He was rich, kind, and his family was everything a little orphan like me could hope for. I was so excited I couldn't sleep. But that morning, just before sunrise, my best friend Marianne grabbed my hand and said, "Let's go find your necklace, that one from your real parents." I followed her because she was my best friend. I trusted her. She led me to the old shed behind the orphan. It was dark, dusty. The kind of place no one ever went alone. And then she pushed me in and locked the door. I remember screaming her name, begging, crying until my voice gave out. She didn't come back. By the time I escaped through a cracked window and stumbled back, bleeding and exhausted, it was too late. Mr. Yates has adopted Marianne instead. She told them I didn't want to be adopted, that I ran away. No one believed me, not even Mrs. Harrison. That night, I cried until I passed out. Everything felt like it had been taken out from me. But that was just the beginning. A few days later, 2 strangers came to the orphanage. One was a man who barely spoke, the other a teenage boy named Jeremy Alder. Cold, quiet, but when he saw me, something changed. He was the first person who didn't look at me like I was broken. And just like that, I was adopted again. This time, not by the Yates family, by the Alders. They were powerful, distant, different, but somehow I felt at home. Jeremy was the first to soften. He pretended to be annoyed by me, but he brought me treats, ruffled my hem, and even let me hold his hand when I was scared. And then there was Charles, Jeremy's sleek old brother. He never came out of his room. He was pale, frail, and quiet, until I found a dying jasmine plant outside his window. Everyone had given up on it, but I hadn't. I don't know why, but when I touched the plant, something inside me stirred, my hands glowing faintly like the earth itself was speaking through me. Then it bloomed. After that, everything changed. Charles started to recover, the house became warmer, and me, I became to remember. Dreams of gardens, of green fireflies, of a past I've never lived but somehow knew. They called me it's the Betrayal. They called it the verdant seed, a gift passed down through generations, a soul reborn to heal what the world had forgotten. Not everyone could carry it, only some with an unclouded heart, me. And somewhere out there, Marianne realized that too. She had stolen my place in the Yates family again, but she couldn't steal what was mine, because what bloomed in me was never meant for her. She searched, she dug, she remembered who I was in another life and feared I would awaken again. She was right. I did, not with power, but with kindness, with love, with every life I touched. In time, even Charles, once fading, stood again. The jasmines wasn't the only thing that had come back to life. I had to. So here I am. Not the girl who was forgotten or betrayed or locked away, but the one who bloomed, where I was broken. Thank you for watching.
I never imagined that the person who'd betray me most would be the one I called sister. My name is Ogenarum, and this is the story of how I lost everything, my innocence, my child, my dignity, and how fate gave me a second chance, in the most unexpected way. It started the night my stepsister, Erivua, sold me. She hated me for reasons I couldn't control, for my beauty, for the attention I got, for the love our late father showed me that she never received. But I never thought she'd take it this far. That night, she gave me a drink, saying we were celebrating my university admission. The last thing I remember was the bitter aftertaste and the way my body became heavy. I woke up in a hotel room, naked, confused, and in pain, with blood between my legs and no memory of what had happened. Erivua told me I had disgraced myself. That I had seduced an older man. That she had tried to stop me but couldn't. I believed her. I was 17. I felt dirty, ashamed, broken. A month later, I found out I was pregnant. With twins. I didn't know the father. I didn't know what to do. I left Sepil and moved in with my aunt in Warri. I kept my pregnancy hidden, endured the whispers and the shame, and when the time came, I delivered 2 beautiful baby girls. But when I woke up after childbirth, only one baby was in my arms. The nurse told me the other had died. I cried for days. For my innocence, my body, and now, my child. But it was a lie. Unbeknownst to me, while I was unconscious, Erivua bribed the nurse and stole my second daughter. She disappeared without a trace, and I was too weak, too broken, to fight. I named my daughter Egevi. She became my world. For her, I fought my pain. I moved to Port Harcourt, studied perfumery, and years later, I returned as Center, a name the world would come to know. I built a name for myself. I created fragrances that carried emotion, longing, memory, heartbreak. But nothing could fill the void of that missing child. The one I was told had died. Until fate led me back to Lagos. I signed a contract with a major company, Akpebom Fragrances Limited. I was to design a signature scent for their CEO. When I walked into the boardroom for my first meeting, I froze. He was there. The man who unknowingly fathered my children. Okimute Akpebom. Nigeria's youngest billionaire. The same man who, on that terrible night, was meant to be someone else. He had been drunk. He had stumbled into the wrong room. And he had taken me. He didn't recognize me. But standing beside him was Erivua. Wearing diamonds, acting like a queen, holding the hand of a little girl who looked exactly like my daughter at home. My heart shattered. I said nothing. I worked with Okimute professionally. But every moment was agony. My missing child was right there, calling another woman mommy. Calling the man who abandoned me daddy. But she wasn't his only child, she was mine too. I began my investigation. Quietly. I followed patterns, dates, looked into hospital records. I paid the nurse who had attended my delivery to talk. And finally, I had my truth. DNA confirmed it. The little girl, Ogenefijiro, was my daughter. I wanted to scream. To cry. to confront Erivia and burn everything to the ground. But I didn't. I waited. Then came the fragrance launch gala. Everyone was there. Celebrities, journalists, investors. And I was the star. As I stood on stage, about to unveil my signature scent called Twin Flame, I told my story, through scent, through words, through truth. I exposed Erivia for what she was. A thief. A liar. A betrayer of blood. The crowd was silent. Okimute's face crumbled as the truth dawned on him. He came to me days later. Alone. No security. No entourage. Just a man with tears in his eyes and regret in his soul. He said he never stopped wondering about me. That he had always felt something was missing. That the woman beside him never felt right. I told him everything. The betrayal. The pain. The stolen years. And together, we cried. My daughters, Egovi and Fijaro, were reunited. They clicked like magnets. Like they had never been apart. Okimute didn't just beg for forgiveness. He worked for it. He spent time with both girls. He learned to be a father. He apologized, not just with words, but with action. Months passed. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the Lagos skyline, he knelt in front of me. He held no diamond, just a ring made from petals of my first fragrance. The one that reminded him of that first meeting. Ogenarum, he said, let me spend the rest of my life making things right. I said yes. Not because of the past, but because of the future. Today, I am a mother of 2 beautiful girls. A wife to the man fate had written into my life long before we understood the story. And Erivia. She disappeared into the shadows from which she came. Some call it revenge. I call it justice, scented with grace. Because I was fated not just to pain, but to purpose. To healing. To love. To my neighbor, my boss, my destiny.
They called it a tragedy. But I remember it as murder. And even in death, I swore I'd return not as the boy she threw away, but as something darker. Stronger. Something the ancestors themselves couldn't ignore. My name was Luthendo. I was born in a small township just outside Pietermaritzburg. My father, Bekezizwe, was a quiet, hard-working man. A school principal. My mother, Tendai, was a nurse at the local clinic and the kindest person I've ever known. But she died when I was 8. They said it was cancer, but to this day I believe her death came too quickly, too silently. Like something or someone helped it along. 3 months later, my father married Nombula. At first, everyone said she was a blessing. A good woman, the auntie said. Beautiful. Educated. Respectable. But behind that bright smile was something cruel. I felt it the moment she touched my shoulder. Cold. Empty. My father changed. He started spending more time away, leaving Nombula in charge. That's when the abuse began. At first, it was small things. Forgetfulness. Leaving me locked outside when it rained. Telling my father I'd misbehaved. But soon, it escalated. She made me sleep in the outside rendezvous meant for chickens. No blanket. No mattress. Only a thin mat and the cold Casian nights. Food became a privilege. I was allowed to eat only pap, sometimes mixed with spoiled milk. When I tried to complain, she accused me of witchcraft, said I was bringing bad spirits into the house. That's how it works in the townships. A whisper of umuthi, witchcraft, and everyone avoids you. Even my own father. He believed her. He believed that I was jealous of her unborn child, that I resented her for replacing my mother. One day, I came home from school and found my room stripped bare. She told me it would now belong to her baby. That I had to learn to live like a true servant of the ancestors. That was the day I started hearing the whispers. At first, I thought it was my imagination. Soft voices in the wind. Calling my name. Luthendo. Luthendo. I followed the sound one night and found myself at Gogo Nomsibo's house, an old Sangoma who lived on the edge of the village. She took one look at me and froze. "You walk with the dead," she said. "But you're not one of them, yet." She let me sleep on her floor that night. She gave me warm tea and bones to hold while I slept. The next day, my father dragged me back. Nomvula had made up a story that I'd stolen money and run away. That night, she pushed me into the pit latrine and locked the cover. It was a slow death. Dark. Suffocating. Cold. The smell of decay, the sounds of flies. I screamed until my throat gave out. Then the silence came. And then, the light. But I didn't wake up in heaven. I woke up somewhere ancient. The sky was purple. The earth was black. I stood barefoot in a land of shadows and fire. Before me stood a council of spirits, tall figures robed in feathers, smoke rising from their hands. Their eyes glowed with starlight. "You are not meant to be here," one said. "She has disrupted the balance," said another. Then a third, the tallest, came forward. "You are Luthendo, child of Tendai and Bekizizwi. Your spirit is not broken. It is reborn." He struck the ground with a staff, and my body changed. No longer the frail, abused boy. I became tall, muscled, armored, tattooed with ancient Zulu symbols. A warlord. A vessel of vengeance. "You shall become Kosi Koluthendo," the spirit said. "You shall return. But you will not return alone." And with a burst of light, I was gone. I woke up in a field just outside Ilanskop. Naked. Confused. Covered in clay and old blood. A truck driver found me and took me to a local clinic. I told them I was a victim of abduction. They believed me. After all, a boy presumed dead returning with no memory. That's just another story in a land full of secrets. But I remembered everything. Everything she did. And I was going to make her pay. I created a new identity. Sibusiso Dlamini. A social worker. I forged documents, studied case files, learned the law. But I also studied the old ways. The Izengoma had trained me in the spirit realm. Now I went back to Gogo Nomsibo. She recognized me. Knew I wasn't a ghost. She helped me harness what the ancestors had given me, visions, whispers, flames in my palm, and the ability to walk through dreams. I found my half-brother, Saifo. He was now 12. Quiet. Withdrawn. Afraid. She was doing the same thing to him. History was repeating itself. So I stopped watching. And I started acting. First, I haunted her. I left symbols on her door, bones tied with red string. I filled her dreams with fire and snakes. I made the dogs bark at nothing. The mirror shattered when she walked by. She began to unravel. She went to a prophet. He told her that the boy she buried was not resting. She began sleeping in a church pew. It didn't help. Then came the ritual night, Saifo's 13th birthday. I made sure it was storming. I knew she would try to perform a cleansing on him, to drive out the spirit she said was haunting their home. That night, I arrived. Not as a boy, but as Nkosi Koluthendo, dressed in war beads, eyes glowing, backed by the thunder of ancestral rage. She screamed. I let her. Saifo stood frozen. But I walked to him, put my hand on his head. "You are safe now." I turned to Nomvula. And I unleashed it all. I didn't kill her. That would be too easy. I called the Council of Ancestors. I bound her spirit. I stripped her of her voice, her beauty, her mind. I cursed her to walk the land unseen, unwanted, never able to sleep, never able to forget. Her body lives. But her soul is trapped in the shadow world, where the whispers never stop. Now, I raise Saifo. We live quietly in Durban. He goes to school, plays soccer, smiles again. But he knows who I am, and what I came back for. The ancestors still speak to me. They say the balance is not yet restored. There are others like Nomvula, hiding, abusing, destroying. I have become their justice. I am not a ghost. I am not a spirit. I am Kosi Koluthendo, and I walk with the dead. But I fight for the living. Stop asking if this is true. You tell me, have you ever felt someone watching you when you thought you were alone? Because sometimes, I'm already there. My father married a mad woman. He was caught sleeping with her and the elders punished him. Weeks later, the mad woman was pregnant and villagers said my father was responsible. After much friction, my father was married to the mad woman. After 9 months, she was taken to a midwife on the outskirts of town, where I was born. I never liked my mother. I always distanced myself from her. Whenever father left for market, he'll tell me to look after her. But I didn't, I'd rather sit outside and play alone. I was often mocked and jeered at school for being the son of a mad woman. And often, she'll be seen at the market square walking and talking to herself, or beside the gutter washing her feet. Sometimes, she would be at a waste bin picking out rubbish. I used to cry in my room and ask God why he gave me a mad woman for a mother, but others had sane and well-to-do mothers. I grew to hate her more and more because she stank, always dirted her clothes and ate food with both hands, instead of cutleries. When I turned 19, I left the village to be with my aunt in the city. Over there, my aunt got me a job through one of her friends. I worked as a waiter and within months I was able to save much before December. I wanted to live and feel big when I returned to the village, so they'll not see me as the local boy or the poor son of a trader whose mother was a mad woman. When I finally came to the village, it was the Christmas period. I used a bushy track behind the market square. It was evening, my heart was heating up with excitement, as I wanted to show everyone I had made it big. I met my mother from afar sitting on a patch of grass in tattered clothes. I didn't want to meet her, nor want her to meet me. I didn't want to hug her damp and smelly body. I didn't want to see her lank short and drab brown hair. I turned, immediately, and all of the sudden people brushed past me, pushing me on the floor. I was brushing off the sand and dirt where a feminine voice shouted, "Come and catch him, oh, Onioshi. Onioshi." Before I knew what was amiss, a firm hand grabbed my trousers by the waist. People suddenly appeared with sticks and matches, others carried whips. I was descended upon. Nobody wanted to hear me out. Nobody wanted to know if I was innocent. The whip landed on my back, the cane added, the machete slammed on my buttocks. I was screaming, crying, pleading, but all paid deaf ears. "Finish him, thief, shameless thief, fine boy like you," a woman said, landing slaps on my face. Within a blink I felt liquid spilled over my body. It was petrol. I screamed the more. "In your next life you'll never steal people's things. Thief." The man that spilled me petrol said. I suddenly felt helpless. I regretted my journey to the village. I hadn't even seen my father and now the man was calling out for matchstick or lighter. I was drenched in tears and blood from bleeding. I didn't know myself, all I knew was to beg for my life. A boy was approaching with lighter when a coconut branch landed on him and soon on everyone. There was a stampede. Mad people. Bloodthirsty demons. "Leave my son, oh," a woman said in Igbo. It was my mother, she ran to shield me immediately. She was crying as she saw my wounds that bled and the tears that soaked my face. "Do," was all she could say and lifted me up gently. The villagers never knew I was the mad woman's son who traveled a long time ago. They all thought I was the thief that stole from a market woman's shop. Were it not for my mother, I'd be dead. I never loved her, but she saved my life. A mother's love never fails.